What up, y'all? It's your boy Shake, and I'm back to discuss AEW Fight Forever. To call the rollout of AEW Fight Forever messy would be an understatement. The developer and publisher Ukes and THQ Nordic went from almost radio silence about the game to an RKO out of nowhere release date announcement. A few weeks later and boom, it's available across multiple gaming platforms. The end product is a wrestling game with strong gameplay mechanics, but noticeably missing features like cage and elimination matches on top of janky-ass bugs. Even worse is the fact that it took THQ Nordic an entire month to inform everyone that purchased the Elite Edition that the DLC release date that was mentioned by media outlets and listed on the Nintendo eShop was incorrect. The unfortunate reality is, strong gameplay can't make up for a lack of poor communication from the publisher and missing features we've come to expect in wrestling games since the PS1 and N64 era. So here are my 4 biggest issues with AEW Fight Forever. Number 1. Fight Forever is not a No Mercy spiritual successor. To be honest, the biggest issue with AEW Fight Forever was the unreasonable expectations set for the game. The game should have never been compared to No Mercy. The comparison was an immediate disservice to the game and set up unrealistic expectations for fans. This is mainly due to the fact that fans have short-term memory and don't always look at things in context. People forget that No Mercy was the 5th iteration of the AKI engine. That wrestling game series started with WCW vs. NWO World Tour and Virtual Pro Wrestling in 1997. In 98, we got WCW Revenge, then AKI got the WWF license and released WrestleMania 2000 in 1999. Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 and No Mercy released in 2000. So if we're including WCW versus the World on PS1, it basically took AKI 4 years to perfect the wrestling game engine we knew and loved. Fight Forever is a first-time effort by Ukes at an AEW game and their first wrestling game since WWE 2K19. Number 2. Although this is related to the first problem I mentioned, it's important to note, let's not get it confused. AKI and Ukes are not the same company, even if some of the former developers from AKI are working at Ukes. The same rules and considerations given to AKI and the time it took to refine their wrestling games should be given to Ukes. Even if we look at Ukes' history developing wrestling games, it took them time to perfect their own engines. SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, which is similarly held in high regard like No Mercy, was the 5th iteration of the SmackDown series on PlayStation. Day of Reckoning 2 was the 4th iteration of Ukes' Nintendo-specific wrestling games on GameCube. If we're being honest with ourselves, as gamers, what Ukes has done with Fight Forever is essentially create a game with incredible gameplay, just like AKI did with WCW vs. NWO World Tour. In my humble opinion, the best we can do is hope that through patches, updates, and optimization on Switch, the game elevates to a point where it's like WCW Revenge or WWF WrestleMania 2000. By no means am I suggesting that we gamers, as paying customers, should accept a broken or half-baked game, which Fight Forever is in its current state. However, what I am saying is, we should temper our expectations sometimes. Number 3, lack of transparency. THQ Nordic shouldn't have sold us a deluxe edition with a season pass without a legitimate roadmap. Most games with season passes typically give you an idea of a timeline or release window. To ask an $80 premium for what feels like an unfinished product would leave any customer upset. But asking us to hold on to the promise of updates seems unfair and predatory. Even worse was the awful timing of their communication about the DLC's incorrect release date after so many media outlets covered it. THQ and Yuke's definitely need to do better by the folks that have been day one early adopters. But before moving on, I want to address the community manager Zaidi, who has legit done a great job to the best of their ability to communicate what they know about the game and announcements regarding updates. They've been active in the Discord. They've been active in the subreddit despite negative commentators and downright toxic people coming for them. From my observations, Zaidi has been the most communicative person from THQ, Nordic, or Ukes. So stop being assholes, y'all. Granted, they may not know everything about wrestling or AEW, but they are doing their job. Lastly, number 4. This is Nintendo Switch specific, right? Despite Ukes' pedigree with wrestling games, I'm not surprised by the bad performance on Switch. While it's functional, we have to remember Ukes also developed WWE 2K18 on Switch. Remember, that was an abysmal, damn near unplayable, glitchy mess of a port. Yeah, Ukes, they did that. I don't know how large Ukes' development team is, or how many people were dedicated to the Nintendo Switch port of the game, but it's clear that the Switch was not a priority. When you go into the custom mode to modify a wrestler and edit their moveset, you can see that the button mapping isn't even assigned to a Switch controller. It's assigned to an Xbox controller. This is negligent and just unacceptable. Also, there's this weird stuttering that happens mid-gameplay on Switch. I won't even get started on the awful low-resolution models on the character select screen. It's clear that Ukes didn't optimize the Switch port in Unreal Engine. But my point is, Switch players deserved better. So, that's my list of the biggest issues with AEW Fight Forever. I'd love to hear what you think is working and not working for the game. Please leave your thoughts in the comments section, but let's keep the convo productive, y'all. Thanks, and please subscribe.